So I'm joined today by a gentleman who has some really special stories from the Old Vienna open mic, and I'm going to let you maybe just start with that, Mr. Erelli. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. And yeah, I have the distinction, I believe, as being the final performer at the final Old Vienna Coffeehouse open mic. In what year was this?
That would have been 96,
Yeah, okay, that was
and
me.
it was probably a day or two after Christmas. If it might have been the day after Christmas, if I remember.
Okay, yep, I don't have any recollection of what time of year it was, or even what song or two I would have played, but I do remember what was said to me right before I went on, which is it's not normal. Normally, I would remember like the music and the interaction with the audience, but all I remember was you, sir, as I went on stage saying, "Please don't suck." I believe that's a direct quote or thereabouts.
I'm awful sorry about that, but you know what? It's a great little thing that we both remember.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, I understand the sentiment too. I mean, of course, it was the end of an era, and in the big scheme of things, maybe it's not the most flashy or high-powered, era in as far as the entertainment industry goes, but as far as a scene and a region and a community, it was a very important thing. And you don't want to go out on a sour note.
Tell me how you found the old Vienna and how you structured some friendships that you've made long term as a result.
Yeah, I mean, the Old Vienna, it's funny, it was a little bit before my time as a performer. I didn't really start getting out there and performing in earnest until about 96, which was the year I graduated from college. Um, but the Old Vienna was this kind of mythic thing just beyond 495. I grew up in a suburb of Boston, so everything west of 495, it was like there be the dragons. I'd heard about this you know, community out in Western Mass. Northampton had a scene of its own and had, the Iron Horse was another kind of famous venue. And the Old Vienna Coffee House was one of these regional venues like the Left Bank Cafe up in Blue Hill, Maine, or Del Rossi's Trattoria up in Dublin, New Hampshire, that were part of this traveling songwriter circus. And I actually don't have a lot of a personal experience going to a lot of those venues because I think mainly I was either too young, I was still in high school, um, and I didn't really have to go because there were plenty of church coffee houses and venues in the Boston area that I could, more easily get to. So I only went to the Old Vienna, I believe, a couple of times or a few times, all for the open mic. I don't recall ever seeing a show there, but I would go to the open mic, and it was one of those things where you would just wait literally all night long because you wanted to be part of that, a small part of that community that badly. That's how important it was to the general folk scene and to your development and evolution as an artist.
Your evolution of as an artist has been one of my favorite stories to watch from afar. I wish we were closer and I could hear more and share more of it. But your songwriting is as poignant as anybody's that I've known anywhere.
Thank you.
And you write songs that matter. You write songs that get to the heart of a matter. You write songs that have a universality. You are just wonderful in that. And one of my favorite songs, of course, is the song "By Degrees." And I only recently watched the video. I've always listened to it on the album. And can you share how that came together? Because you got some players on there.
Yeah, I mean the By Degrees project was really a kind of a Hail Mary sort of thing. I wrote the song on an airplane on my way to North Carolina for a gig with Paula Cole, and I was watching my Twitter feed, seeing the responses to a shooting out in Oregon at a community college. And I remember just I'd stumbled upon the hashtags associated with the postings, and that meant that I was out of my little algorithmic bubble, and I was starting to see both, left wing and right wing kind of posts, and was just kind of shocked at the kind of duality of the discourse, if you can call it that. So the song kind of tumbled out of me very quickly, and I recorded it. I think when I got home, I recorded it down here in my basement and wanted to put it out immediately, and actually pushed it out to a few radio stations where I could email people um, directly. And some of them played it. WUMB here in Boston added it to their programming, which, to their credit, because anytime you're singing about something like that, it's a political song, and if you're a nonprofit or a university affiliated radio station, that can be problematic. But you know, people in my little community knew about it, and it kind of went away pretty quickly. And I thought, like, the song is just it's supposed to do more. It's not done. And one night I remember I was in the Canadian Rockies, of all places, playing with Josh Ritter and his band. And another shooting happened somewhere. And I thought, I got to put this song out again, but I need other voices to get it over it, to get it out, with further reach than I can do on my own. And I had connected with Roseanne Cash through Twitter, actually. Improbably, I tweeted at her about the song, and she wrote back to me, DM'd me, and we became friendly through the song. She actually invited me to play it with her at a Brady campaign benefit fundraiser. And I said, if I was going to record a proper version of this song, it's got to include Roseanne. So let me run this by her, and if she says yes, then I have to do it. And if she says no, it's dead in the water. And so I texted her, right before I went on stage. And by the time I came off, there was a response saying I'm in. And so I knew I had to do it. And from then on, it was just a matter of cajoling people to take part in something, which, turns out is pretty challenging if you're not like a huge international star.
Well, it's an important song and it still has legs, it still has life. And unfortunately, there's too many circumstances that bring it back to life too regularly. So,
Yeah, that song has actually an indirect roots in the Old Vienna Kaffeehaus community, in that one of the times that I was there for the open mic, Katie Curtis was there. Um, at the time, this would have been the mid 90s. Katie Curtis was, I mean, her star was either fully risen or definitely on the rise. I mean, she was recording records with people from the E Street Band, and she was a big. I was a big fan, and I maybe opened for her once or twice and was friendly with her. But I think I played a song at the open mic, and I didn't even realize she was there. And she jumped up from the audience and came and found me and said, "I love that song, and we should get together sometime and write." And so we ended up first, I think we just got together to share each other's new songs with each other. And that kind of evolved into a co-writing relationship. And both of us were kind of on a tear with kind of socially inspired music at the time. And we wrote a song called People Look Around, which won the International Songwriting Competition Grand Prize. And we wrote a song called Passing Through together. We wrote another one called Here and Now. These kind of socially inspired, kind of folky sort of anthems. And that kind of all that all primed the pump for what became By Degrees. So, I think if I'm honest about it, By Degrees, owes a tiny debt to that Old Vienna Coffeehouse community as well.
that's, man, that's that community also led to somebody who you spent a lot of time on stage with, you know who I'm referring to, but for folks who might not, you want to share some of that?
Yeah, I mean, I know Laurie McKenna had an even more frequency at that venue and on that stage than I did. I don't believe we ever crossed paths there. I think our history starts kind of closer to Club Passim. But it was really I don't want to say the same community because that kind of diminishes things, but it was a heavily overlapping community. Let's put it that way.
It was a magic time in the region that was
Yeah.
short-lived, but man, rich.
Yeah, and I feel very fortunate to have come up at the kind of tail end of that time where singer-songwriters, just a guy or a girl with a guitar could go out and just really achieve quite astonishing by today's standards success. On a real large scale. When I was going to the Newport Folk Festival back in the 90s, you wouldn't think anything for Greg Brown to walk on stage with just a guitar solo, sit down, and then play a 45-minute set, and the whole place would be wrapped, you know.
Mm.
And that would happen with Patty Larkin and any number of people. Um, as the scene kind of got more and more commercially ascendant, I think, the introduction of the singer-songwriter with the band, backing band, became a little more of a thing, and that had its own. People had their strong feelings about that, but for a while, it was just, one person with a guitar, and that was really the expectation, and that was really what audiences seemed to want. And those venues like the Old Vienna Kaffeehaus were just tailor-made, kind of perfect environments for the kind of deliverance of a song in that way and in that format.
Man, I'm just reading some of the titles of the songs that you're writing, and I talk about song poignancy and the song Blindsided and Lay Your Darkness Down. I mean,
Yeah.
man, I'm how's that going for you?
It's okay. I
Yeah.
mean, there's times when I could almost convince myself like, oh, this isn't really happening. And then I'll go into a dark room, or I'll drive down a tree-lined street, and go in and out of the shadows, and they're like, oh no, this is definitely happening. Um, a lot, some of the recent songs that reference sight and vision, and even light and darkness, a lot of those actually predate my knowing that I
Really?
had this condition. Um, Maybe there's some part of me deep down inside that knew. I mean, that entire Blindsided record came out 6 months before I was diagnosed, and I had absolutely no idea. In fact, I was kind of using Blindsided as kind of flipping the metaphor and using it as like a positive, like blindsided by love, in a good way, um, as opposed to the pejorative way that you'd see it more commonly used. And in that first line of by degrees, when I take a look around me, sometimes I wish I was blind. I mean, that's not a line I would write now,
Yeah.
but at the time I didn't know. And I've thought about, like, do I change that um, or not? And I think kind of where I've come down on all this stuff is that, like, I just am most interested in doing the emotional work and the heavy lifting that gets me to a point where I can sing this stuff and it doesn't bum me out, or it doesn't get translated in such a way to the audience,
Right.
and I'm pretty much there with that. Every once in a while, I'll sing that line from By Degrees and go, God damn it,
Well,
you know.
it's funny because if you take the story subject out of the song By Degrees and what you're singing about there, and you drop in this topic that we're discussing,
Sure.
they meet somewhere in the middle. And if you've got a song, don't let anybody, even yourself, talk you out of it unless you really think there's a reason to do it, because you never know who you're going to touch.
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel that that's actually one of my songwriting and performance yardsticks for myself now. If I get to a point where I feel like I'm singing something that feels very raw and very vulnerable and very emotional, That to me is not the time to pull back. That's an indication that I'm saying something that could help others, like you say, and it's important to share that. And social media is this kind of parade of everybody's, seemingly best moments and their successes, and I think we're all a bit unhinged by this constant exposure to that. And what really kind of brings us together and ironically lifts us up is hearing about people's challenges and hearing that other people struggle and deal with their own version of whatever that looks like for them. So yeah, I'm fully with you. The only thing that I really pull back from is when I feel like I might be potentially speaking for someone that doesn't have a chance to speak for themselves, like, so I'd be very hesitant to talk about, my kids or my wife in a certain way in song because they don't really have a chance to respond, and it doesn't feel fair. But as far as my own interior life goes, it feels pretty much all valid, and the scarier and more vulnerable and more open it feels, probably the more important it is to say it.
You're in a wonderful place and a scary place at times where you got to stick by your convictions.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. The quote unquote political songwriting or political art stuff. I've really kind of gone around on that. I mean, I have my political convictions, and I don't think those are too hard to surmise from
Yeah.
anyone that's listening to my
Yep.
art. Um, at the same time, I do want the widest audience possible so that I'm talking across however many lines I can talk across and sing across, because I do feel like we are not as un yes, we're all special and we're all unique, but we're actually not as unique and special as we probably think we are. We have a lot in common, and there is a lot of shared life experiences to address through art that quote unquote political stuff can kind of prevent. I'm not afraid of taking a stance in a song, but I would say that even a song like By Degrees, um, I think of it as a love song. I'm not writing that song because I think that I can affect, gun violence legislation, or I can, more quickly or effectively bring about, gun control or whatever. That's not why I'm writing that song. I'm writing that song because something I love feels like it's suspended in the balance. And I'm not just talking about my kids every time I send them to school. I'm talking about my sense of hope, my sense of faith in my fellow human beings, that we can decide that we've had enough of something and that we can change something for the better. And so that's, to me, that's what I'm writing about every time. I don't think art can really be sustained very long through anger or hate, or frustration, or all those things that I have certainly felt looking at political situations and feel. Um, but the one thing that will power art forever and will outlast everything is love. And so that's where I try and write from a place of love. And if you hear me singing about something that I feel seem to be expressing deep convictions of, I love that what's at stake very much. And if someone disagrees on what I love, they can write their own love song, and we can have both of them. Hey everybody, I'm Mark Erelli, and in case you hadn't heard, the Old Vienna Kaffeehaus community is doing something really special. They're getting the band back together for a reunion, and you can be a part of helping make that happen. Please donate at the link below.
You can learn to live with anything when it happens by